Time and again, the world bears witness to truths seldom said. Lend an ear. We promise enlightened, informed conversation. My name is Robert, and this is Seldom Said, the place where conversation matters. Welcome back. This is Seldom Said. My name is Robert. A special program with a marvelous pianist of international renown, Ms. Walkiria Izaguirre, who is speaking to us from Vienna. She'll be sharing her story and her musical expertise. Welcome to Seldom Said, Walkiria.
Hi, Robert. Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure, I can assure you. Can we start with a little bit of personal background, who you are, where you're from, and what's brought you to this time and place?
Well, I've been playing piano for a while. Everything started when I was 6 years old. I'm from Venezuela, as you said. Yes, I basically started playing piano as fun, and now it's my life. Now it's my passion and my work as well.
I have personally heard so much about Venezuela's musical program and the educational system. Did that launch your interest and career, or were you doing this on your own?
I think so, absolutely, because first of all, it's a great project that involucrates the classical music with also the social situation that we have that. So many kids have the possibility to enter to the classical music and to get an instrument and to get the education and to perform as well. So you see classical concerts happening every week there. And of course, that was an influence for me. So I was fascinated by those young kids playing Beethoven and Mozart and Tchaikovsky on a great level.
That's marvelous. What was the affinity and association with your family in the pursuit of your career?
Well, it's funny because my parents are economists, both of them. So I never had this influence by my parents. I will say that it came from me. I was so fascinated with the instrument. I remember seeing other pianists playing the instrument. I was so fascinated by the sound. So I think I was the one who told my mother I want to learn how to play piano.
Why piano? There's a myriad of instruments, and I've already interviewed two participants in the festival. What brought you to the piano as a stand-up instrument for your expression?
Well, that's a question that even for me it's so difficult to answer, because piano is certainly not more beautiful or more complex than the other instruments. The other are as well so beautiful, and the repertoire as well is so beautiful. But I will say, as a child, you don't really know. I was curious and fascinated by the sounds that the instrument can produce.
I would imagine the layman would be very curious. Now, you have skills of an elite level. Those inherent qualities you have that allow you to place your fingers on the keyboard and produce those marvelous sounds, do you feel in any way that's native to you as a person, or can it be taught? Is this the product of education, of inherent talent, or a mixture of both, a porridge?
Well, I don't know. I think there are so many cliches about it. For example, I have short fingers, and I was told when I was a child that I won't be able to play a certain type of works because of my fingers, and that's actually not true. And I think what we really need to have is love. It's love for the music, love for the art. And if you love it, and if you are really committed to this process, and you work daily on it, and you have also good professors, then you can achieve it. So yes, people say that you need to have the talent, but what's the talent? I don't really know what's a talent, because you can be very talented, as we know, but if you don't practice enough, or if you are not able to keep going when difficulties come, then what can you do with your talent? So I will say that very, very important is to be able to be very consequent and to work hard daily.
An interesting interview recently in the States with a pianist named Billy Joel, and he also said he had very short fingers, and he had to make do by simply crossing over his hands. When you play something as complex and varied as a Bach cantata, which requires that separation, how do you transfix the music and make it applicable to your hand position on the keys?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I have a great professor, Joan Ko from Singapore, and I actually came to Vienna to work with him. And even though he has very long fingers, we work together on finding a good fingering. For me, the fingering means the selection of fingers that you will use for each note, right? So let's say that when I'm learning a work, I have to take some time to decide very good which finger will work for me properly. And in passages where I have like very good, very big chords, then I will play it as an arpeggio, for example. So there is always a solution. I believe in that.
Indeed, I would tend to believe in that myself. Just a little bit of whimsy and fancy and click your heels together and hope for the best. Have you ever been in the midst of a concert and felt that a bit of luck and whimsy would be required to finish appropriately?
Well, I guess so. As I say, I've been performing for so many years that let's remind that we are all humans. And some days we have a concert and we feel very good prepared for it, and we are on the right mindset, and we feel completely fit for that. But as I said, we're humans. So some days we don't feel so good, or maybe the concentration is a little bit weak. And yes, and we are hoping to have a little bit of luck to finish the concert properly.
There's something intensely human about that makes the performer and the performance just very special. I'm reminded of a story I'd heard about Pavarotti sing an aria, and he swallowed a fly and found himself trying desperately to adapt for the last several minutes. So things can happen. The people in the States who take up piano, Walkiria, especially young people, students, will take the position of wanting to know contemporary music, jazz, rock, even some background to rap. You've segued to classical. Why classical?
Well, Robert, this is another question very difficult for me to answer, and I've been asked so many times about it because I'm from Venezuela, and my parents, both of them, come from very poor backgrounds in Venezuela. So I'm not from an elite family there where I was used to hear this classical music. When I was 18, I went for the first time to Europe when I decided to study music as a career. And it was my first encounter with Europe. So everything is completely new for me. But even though that I don't have this explanation or this logical explanation, I will say that maybe because of this classical project from Venezuela, El Sistema, that I was always in contact with the music. Those concerts were always happening, and every once in a while I had the opportunity to hear some Beethoven and, as I say, some Tchaikovsky or some Mozart, and I felt a connection. And as I say, as a Venezuelan musician, I haven't even played Latin music yet. It's something that I want to do in the future. But right now, I'm still so in love with the classical music that is something that I can't explain.
I'm paraphrasing Byron. There's a poem, might be apocryphal, attributed to him, where he was asked to explain love, and he said, "Love simply is love." If I explain it, I can't do it.
It is, and I swear, and this is art, and you just have to do it with love. And I just love every day when I start playing my piano, when I start practicing my repertoire for my concerts. My concerts are the motivation or the rehearsals. But even if I don't have a concert soon, I'm still going to the piano every day and playing many hours because I love it. So playing piano is my favorite thing to do. It's my hobby. It's my passion. It's my work. So it's love. Nothing but love.
It's so nice to hear that you found love. Is there a moment, an epiphany in your life when you just suddenly realized, this is my life's focus, this is the direction I will go in? Is there something that you can relate to and share with the listening audience that simply pictures that instance, that Damascus moment?
Well, I always had the dream that, oh, it would be so nice to become a classical pianist. But somehow I always saw it as an impossible dream because I knew that for that I will have to go to the States or to go to Europe and find another professor and something like that. And as I say, we didn't have the financial situation for that. So actually, I was playing piano my whole childhood. And after the high school, my plan was to go to the university and study economy, like my parents. And I even went to the university to do the exam, the admission, and I passed the exam. And just before inscribing to the course, I decided, no, 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 no. I really need to try first the music. And I was 17 years old. That's when I took the decision. I need to go to Berlin and I need to try. It doesn't matter what, I need to try. Because imagine for us in South America, it's not common to take the classical music as a career. So many people were so worried about my future and they were so worried about me and about how I'm going to do it, what I'm going to do for work. And even my piano teacher, Robert, it's incredible, but it's a part of our culture. My piano teacher, I remember advising me to not study classical music, to go to the university and study another thing like economy or medicine or something else. And I don't know how I found the strength, and I say, no, I need to try because I really love this. And I'm still trying 9 years after.
Do you feel, in a sense, the way you describe it, you'd be incomplete without it?
Absolutely. If I would be unhappy if I wouldn't have the music. And not only if I wouldn't have the music, if I wouldn't have the music the way I live it right now, which is full time. I live for the music. I'm a classical pianist. So as I say, I wake up, I practice. I have also a few students. Then I go teach a little bit, come back home, or go to the conservatory or to the rehearsal studio and practice maybe another lesson and then go back to practicing. So it's my dream life and I'm happy and I'm doing well. So I'm so sorry for all the young people who were told don't take the music as a career, or not only music, it can be another discipline like painting or dancing or acting, because it is possible. I believe that when you love something, you do it with love, you become good at it. And of course, the money, it's an effect. It will come as well. So I have young students and I try to encourage them to follow their dreams and I try to make them believe that everything is possible if you do it with love.
Now, you say your parents are economists and you had initially thought about taking the test for it, which you've passed.
Exactly.
Economics has a visceral result. One can point to figures and results and formulae. How would you, as an educator, tend to explain the value of the arts to someone who is inexperienced?
Well, I will say that art it's defined by the beauty, and I'm sorry for repeating again, but as well from love as love. So art is all these beautiful things that we have in life and that cannot be bought. You know, they have no price. So sometimes I'm playing a piece or I'm in a concert and I'm hearing something and I have this experience. I feel this ecstasy from the music, from the beauty on it. Or I go to the museum and I see a paint and I feel this connection by something that cannot be paid. So there is no money to express this. And it's incredible because, you know, in our modern times where we are so busy consuming, and the media is also playing a big role about making us consume every time more. It's so fine and it feels so nice to find this comfort in the arts and also to inspire others because you feel complete. You feel complete just with the art.
There's something intriguing about Sistema. In the States, there is some difficulty with musical education in that many times in school budgets, it's one of the first things to be cut, along with the visual arts. What is the premise and structure of Sistema for the listening audience so they can take account of it?
Well, I can understand that because we cannot forget that the music education it's a very expensive education. That's why it's been always associated with the elite. It's not a lie, it's not a cliche. It is because it's a very expensive education. So the reason why El Sistema from Maestro José Antonio Abreu in Venezuela got so welcomed by the whole world is because they took these very poor childs from the barrios in Caracas and the other cities from Venezuela, and they grounded these orchestras, and basically they are orchestra. So actually I'm a pianist, and that's why I'm doing my solo education in Europe, because I don't have an orchestra instrument. Otherwise I will be probably playing also with El Sistema. So the idea of Jose Antonio Abreu was founding this orchestra in every district of Venezuela with the poor guys, and they got a free instrument and they have everyday rehearsals. So all these districts have an orchestra. So you can imagine this Sistema started 35, 40 years ago. So you can now imagine how many orchestras you can find in Venezuela. So it's a wonderful idea, a wonderful idea.
It just sounds like an expression of great joy.
It is.
Marvelous. We're within 1 minute of our first station break, Walkiria. I'll give you a 30-second lead into it, and then we'll come back. I would be curious if we could start discussing your instrument, and your instrument as an extension of yourself, your personality, your talent. Can you begin explaining what are the inherent difficulties and issues that must be dealt with in regard to a world-class pianist, as indeed you are?
Yes, I will say that it's not only about pianists, but as a musician, I will say one of the difficulties to deal with as a musician is the routine. Because in order to master a repertoire, you really need the repetition. You need daily repetition, and you need to work on the piece again and again and again. And you also need a lot of discipline. So sometimes you are tired, sometimes you are not feeling so well, sometimes your muscles are tired of practicing so many hours. But still, you have to find the energy to go to the piano and start practicing again. This is not something easy. And as a drum musician, yeah.
Walkiria, if I may, I would not want to interrupt that train of thought because it's quite interesting. We're going to be coming back in a few seconds. I'll reintroduce you.
My pleasure.
It is, I can assure you, our pleasure on this end. This is Seldom Said. My name is Robert.
This is Seldom Said with Robert Amato.
Welcome back. This is Seldom Said. My name is Robert. A special program with an excellent, superb, world-class pianist and musician, Ms. Walkiria Izaguirre. Walkiria, if you would continue that thought about repetition and practice and readying yourself for performance.
Yes, as I said, I think one of the most difficult things to cope as a classical musician is the fact that you have to have a lot of discipline and the fact of the routine. Of course, it's not easy for no one having to repeat a day and the other day and the other day and the same for months or for years, the same piece. But we have to know that this is a necessary process for the artistry. And if I really want to deliver a work on the highest level, I need to have this training. So this is not something easy to cope with because sometimes we feel tired or we feel low from the energy, or maybe our muscles are very tired, and we still need to find the time and the energy to go to the piano and to try again.
You constantly use that word repetition, and I am wondering, Walkiria, the pieces you play are intricate, technical, and passionate. When you've played in a performance and you've reached what you feel is a technical and musical peak, is there any concern on your part or any musician's part of recapturing that the next evening?
Well, it is. Even though that I've been playing the work for months, when I'm on stage and when I feel comfortable about the work, and the repertoire in general, of course, there will be always a few passages where I will have to be very careful when I'm on stage. And I know those passages very good, and I have to remind myself, hey, Valkyria, don't forget when you are on the concert and you are exactly in that moment, don't forget to breathe in, don't forget to go a little bit back with the body and to mega focus, because that's what you need. So this is a part of the training, because, of course, if we know that we have a difficulty, probably we'll get just nervous. And if we are not prepared or if we don't have enough experience, we might start to panicking. So it should be the other way. So if I know that there are some parts, even though that I've been practicing this for years or for months, even though if I know that there are some parts that are very difficult, I just have to be very concentrated on that moment, and I'm sure that it's going to work.
I've interviewed a number of artists, vocal musicians, instrumentalists. A certain few of them have always said they had a concern as to whether they would leave too much of themselves on stage in the performance. When you play something intensely emotional, is there the concern that you will drain yourself?
It is absolutely true. And I have to also tell myself, if there is a moment, let's say a passage that is very musical and very emotional, I have to remind myself, hey, try to stay a little bit cool. Don't get too emotional, because in the moment that we get too emotional, we also have the risk to lose the concentration. So we get then too emotional. And we need to keep the control while performing, because it's not only the musical part, we also have these technical difficulties, and we have to keep the concentration. And as a pianist, if I'm doing a solo recital, then I'm playing also by heart. So everything should be memorized. So I have to be very, very concentrated and very focused. And if there is a moment where I lost the concentration for a second, then I have to be that prepared that I can connect to the next passage and no one will notice it. So there is actually not enough time to get emotional, because yes, as they say, you could lose the control of the situation.
Have you ever tried what really is antithetical to classical music and structure? Have you ever considered trying a jazz fugue or something of the sort where you simply extemporaneously played?
I will. I mean, I did, and at some point in the future, maybe when I have more time, I would love to experiment with the jazz music. But I have to say, I have a big respect for the jazz world, because it's as complicated, as sophisticated, and complex as the classical music. So actually, when you go to the conservatory, you have the theory courses from the classical department, and you have the other theory from the jazz department. So even though I've been having my education since I was a child, if I would love to play jazz music, I will have to start learning many things, also from the theory. I would love to, but as I said, right now I'm very focused on my new repertoire, my project, so that's something that I have on mind.
Do you have a visceral memory or a visual memory of your first performance on stage? And can you share the emotion of that moment with the listening audience?
Well, I remember performing as a small child in house concerts, but my first bigger recital in a bigger hall was when I was 13. And I remember that was a Sunday. I remember waking up that day, relaxed, and the feeling for me was like going to a party. And it's still the same feeling. When you do something like this, you love it so much that, for example, it's my case. I get so excited about sharing the music with you, because I've been spending so much time preparing it that I'm so happy to offering you this. So back at those days when I had that recital, I remember that I was nothing but happy and excited to play. My friends were there, my classmates, and it was only joy, I have to say. Then when I got a little bit older, like 15, 16, 18, I started to get more conscious about the difficulties and the memory work. Then you start to get a little bit more nervous and more conscious also about the risk of performing. And I remember having like a kind of crisis between the 17, 16, and 19 when I came to Vienna. And then, because when you are younger, you practice also on another way. You, for example, talking about the memory, you memorize everything and you are not aware of all the risks that can happen on stage. And as well, the kind of works that you perform are different, are not the same concert pieces that I'm playing right now, of course. But then, well, when you get a little bit older and you start to play more complicated works and these called concert pieces, then you start getting more involved with the memory analysis. So it's like a very heavy and intense process, which is not only playing all the hours daily, it's also the work with the papers, with the notes, like before starting to practice or before going to bed, reading and thinking about that and how is the dynamic and how is the analyze. So it's very intense.
Would you share your favorite composer, favorite musical piece, and then explain why they are both so imperative to you?
Well, I will say that changed from time to time. At the moment, one of my favorite works is the Schumann Piano Concerto on A minor because it's such a melodic piece. The orchestration is so grandiose, and I'm preparing it right now, so I'm planning to perform that concerto in the next month. I will say I'm also completely in love at the moment with chamber music and talking about works like the Arpeggione Sonata by Schubert or the Rondeau Brillant in B minor by Schubert as well, or the Franck Violin Sonata. So it's difficult, of course, to choose only one composer or only one work, but I will say that from time to time you have your favorites one for the moment, and then that rotates. And probably your favorites one are the one that you are practicing at the moment because you have to get in love with it. Otherwise, it's not easy to hear it every day for so many hours.
Do you feel it's incorrect for people to say that they've mastered a performance, they've mastered an instrument? It seems really ego-centered and inapplicable to classical performance.
Well, I mean, I will agree with that. I will say that it's possible because we're talking about very complex pieces, and the fact that you bring it to the stage, let's say that you prepare a whole 60 or 70 minutes recital program, that's already a success, and that's already a lot. Then, of course, we can always talk about how good was or what else needs the pieces to have, yeah? But I will say it is possible, but that doesn't mean that it will exist the perfection, because the problem with the classical music, and it's not easy for classical musicians, is that it's associated with being perfect and with playing perfect. So if I go to a concert and I play a few wrong notes, then it will be associated that with that I'm not enough virtuoso or I'm not enough good or something like that. And maybe normally I play very clean, but maybe that day I had concentration problems. And those few wrong notes also, I don't think that bring you on a lower level of a pianist. So we have to remember that we are all humans. So it is possible to achieve a very high level, especially if this is your work, because you're doing it every day and you are investing all your time, your energy, and having lessons and everything. But that doesn't mean that it has to be perfect. Some concerts will be better than the others, and I think it is a part of the process to accept that.
Do you ever enjoy, and many do and many don't, do you enjoy listening to yourself critically?
It's very difficult. It's a very difficult exercise because, of course, you will always find spots where you could do it better, and maybe you get a little bit angry, like, why did I do it this way if you know that it has to be that way? But it's necessary. Confrontation, it's a necessary part of the process, because if you don't acknowledge, so you have to recognize what was good and you have to recognize what has to be better, because otherwise there is no hope to get better or no chances. So it is necessary, but I will say it's very difficult and it's also uncomfortable sometimes. It depends on the recording, of course.
I see. Would you ever consider conducting or composing?
Not conducting, but composing, yes. And I actually did a 3 years program of composition in Vienna with Maestro Joseph Stolz. It was beautiful, but it came a moment where I had to decide either I go serious with the composition or I keep going with my concerts, competitions, written with the piano, and I, of course, choose the piano.
Perhaps this is an awkward question, but it's often been asked of people who have reached a high level. If indeed your initial instrument, the one you sit upon and play today, is the imperative in your life, what instrument would occupy the place of number 2?
I will say the cello. I love the cello, I love the music, and I love the repertoire. So actually, when I'm playing or preparing chamber music repertoire, I'm very motivated by learning works for piano and cello because I just love it so much, and also love the contrast between the piano and the cello.
It's strange we have an affinity in that the cello is the love of my life. I cannot play it, but I certainly enjoy listening. Hand movements, calluses, and so forth, very different instruments. What do you feel are the comparabilities outside of the passion and the love of the sound?
Between the piano and the cello?
Indeed, yes.
I will say the passion. Because when you hear the piano music, let's talk about solo piano repertoire and let's talk about solo cello pieces. They are so passionate works, and I love the repertoire, and I will say that, and I don't want to offend no one, but I will say that piano, like cello, are instruments very comfortable to hear when they have no accompaniment, like when you are hearing a concerto for piano and orchestra, or also chamber music. For some people, maybe hearing a solo violin piece will be maybe a little bit too high, or the same with flute. But I will say, but this is my personal opinion, with the piano and with the cello, with chamber music format or orchestra format, or without it, it sounds already very complete.
How long have you been drawn to chamber?
I will say around 7 years. I will say that I started experimenting seriously with chamber music when I was at the conservatory in Vienna, and well, I started having chamber music and performing with colleagues from the conservatory, and later on I met a wonderful violinist called Martin Lenfeld. He's actually a first violin player from the Vienna Symphony Orchestra. And I'm talking about a man who is as old as my dad. So for me, it's always a pleasure, and I feel incredibly lucky the fact that I'm able to play and to perform regularly with him chamber music. And he's right now my partner. So we are right now getting ready for and practicing, preparing repertoire for some charity concerts for the next month.
Where will you be playing next month? And will it be recorded?
Yes, it did. The next concerts the idea are to start with some charity concerts in Austria, in some small towns. And I've been always very fascinated by the charity idea or concept of concerts. Of course, he has a very difficult agenda because he's traveling often with the orchestra. And I also have my solo agenda and also my projects with orchestra. So we will start with the Austria region, and we'll see how it will develop.
We're again within 1 minute of our second break. That's usually indicative of Walkiria, of a good program, a really interesting one, in that it's gone by so quickly. I'm wondering if you could start answering this question and return to it after that break as to ways that listeners might be exposed to your music. Recordings, performances, videos, whatever the case might be.
Yes, of course. You can find me on all the social medias, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, under my name, Walkiria Izaguirre.
Indeed. So most of your work is applicable and adaptable to anyone's computer.
It is.
Indeed, indeed. Have you put out pieces on album, disc, something that is commercially viable and saleable that people can purchase to add to their library?
Well, I did this project 5 years ago, but it was like a private project for me where I did my first solo recording, and was mostly for friends. But like on a commercial level, is one of the projects that I have for this next month. I'm sorry.
Okay, marvelous. We are going to take our second break. When we come back, I'd like to talk about your performance at the Gershwin competition, how you feel about musical competitiveness, and how you feel about excelling amongst so many marvelous musicians. We'll be back in a moment. This is Robert, and the program is Seldom Said.
This is Seldom Said with Robert Amato.
Welcome back. We're in the last segment of what has proven to be a marvelous program with a marvelous guest, Ms. Walkiria Izaguirre, who has been discussing her musical career, her expertise at the piano. She is surely a virtuoso. Walkiria, if you could place the shoe on the other foot, so to speak, you're in the judge's chair looking and listening to those persons performing at the Gershwin. What are you looking for in a winning competitor?
Well, we have to say that this is a very personal thing, because talking again about art, this is something absolutely relative. So beauty have one definition for me, but has another for you. But I will say, if I will be judging on a competition, I will be looking for expression and artistry and having a good control of the technical difficulties, I will say.
Would it be extraordinary for a performer to be number one at most competitions they participated in, or would they be highs and lows in their abilities on a given night in a competitive venue?
I will say that, of course, everyone wants to achieve the first prize, and it feels nice for the moment. But we have to understand that this is not the only path. Some people think that in order to make it, in order to try to have some concerts and to live by the classical music, you have to only win competitions. And the truth is that even when you go to the competition, you are going there letting others to know you and letting others know that you exist and letting hear your music. So even if you don't get to the final, if you don't get the first prize or the second prize, you are already winning because you are discovered. And my last competition was in the summer last year. I went to Estonia to the Gershwin competition, funded by Michael Bulichev, a great pianist and a great person who is really helping and supporting the next generation. I'm so grateful with Michael because he's helping me a lot. And indeed, I went to the competition. I went to Estonia. I performed. We had one concert, one recital, and the day after was the competition. So I went to the concert and I went to the competition. And after the competition, I was selected to go to the final in New York some month after. But I didn't win the first prize. But even though I didn't win the first prize, I got another invitation. So for me, I'm winning.
Marvelous, marvelous indeed you are. When you played, with Michael in Tallinn, Michael is a marvelous musician, and Tallinn is an interesting town when it comes to music.
Yes.
What were your feelings?
Well, I was fascinated. I have to say that I was very shortly in Estonia. I was only 3-4 days because I was also getting ready for another solo performance in Vienna. So I had to come back very quickly to Vienna and to perform. But it was beautiful. I remember meeting some of the teachers because it's not only the competition. You also have the festival happening through 4 weeks or 6 weeks, so really, really long. So Michael is making sure that everything is very, very complete. Not only the concerts, not only the competition, but he has also many master classes and great teachers. I had the opportunity to meet one of the teachers from Philadelphia, and it was great. It was just great spending some time with great musicians from the whole world. Very friendly, I would say, very friendly atmosphere.
I've always had the impression when people reach a certain level and they are as good as they are, there isn't any causticness in their presentation. There isn't any edge. There simply is love of what they're doing. Do you agree with that?
I do. I do, because you are comfortable with yourself, and you know that you have experience, and you know that this is only one another experience, and if the performance doesn't go so well, it's okay, because you know that you can do it well. So, for example, for me, when I go to the competition and I'm planning to go on another one soon, I'm not really focused on winning or to go into the final. I'm just going there to show the judges why I love Beethoven or why I love Schubert. And that's my interpretation. So it's difficult because it's a little bit of an egocentric thing, but it's also very difficult to try to please others, and you will never please others 100%. So it's very important as an artist to have this confidence and to understand what you are doing, what are you playing, why are you playing that, and to show others why you are doing it, and to show how it should be played as well.
What were the positive results for you in participation in the Gershwin competition?
Well, I will say after that competition, I got the pass for the New York final. I couldn't make it to the final because I had another appointment in Vienna, another recital. So I will go in some month. I will go to this year's edition. But yes, I got that invitation, and after that, I got another invitation from Michael to participate in a festival masterclass in Singapore and also in Germany. So many invitations are coming, and as I said, it doesn't even matter if you don't reach the final, because if you're making an honest performance and if you are showing your real artistry, they will ask you. They will ask you to come back. They will ask you to go to another festival. So I'm happy.
Woody Guthrie, who you may or may not have heard of, an American folk singer, once said that everything is plagiarism. Do you feel that in music, everything is borrowed?
Yes, I will say so. I agree with that.
So in a sense, in composition, it is simply rearranging the lines for your own disposition. It is not something inherently new.
That's true. That's why there is this situation with the modern contemporary music where some people, you have like this dilemma where some people say, well, this is not a melodic music. This is very difficult to hear and to follow, because of course it's breaking all the patterns. It's breaking the pattern of the classical period or the Baroque period. But on the other side, you have also something which is completely new. You could try to compose something very melodic and very inspired by Mozart or Beethoven or Schubert style, but it will be that, a work based on someone else's style.
Do you feel that types of music, and I'm thinking of people like Charles Ives, very on-edge modern performers, are there types of music that you find discordant?
Yes, I would say so. Totally.
What makes them so as compared to what you love to do and what you respect?
Well, I will say that when it starts to get to this point of the avant-garde, it's complicated for the audience. It's complicated for the audience to listen and to follow. You have different styles. Also for the classical pianist, you have the pianists who are choosing a more lyrical repertoire. You have also the pianists who are choosing a more virtuoso repertoire, like the Russian works, for example. So it's a question of style, I will say, and all are beautiful, and of course we should respect all of them.
All right, if I may, close your eyes, make a wish, take yourself back to the beginning. What advice would you afford yourself as a young musician, or to any young musician listening and wanting to follow in your footsteps? What advice would you give them?
I will say you just have to follow your heart, and if you feel this big love for the music and for the art, you have to try it. You have to give it a try. If you are committed to practicing and to giving your best, just try it. It's not an easy journey, but it's absolutely worth it. So no matter what, we live in a society which is still quite conservative concerning career choosing, but it's gonna be worth it.
Do you feel that virtually everyone and anyone can learn to be capable on a musical instrument? Not grandiose, not elite, not a maestro, but capable.
I will say yes. I mean, I haven't watched the first piano tutorial in my life yet, but I know that you have many options, and I'm sure there are some great people making good piano tutorials or another instruments tutorials. So I will say yes, you can for sure learn how to play some pieces and to start, and at least you will get an idea of the instrument, and that's good.
Now, as you said, you have students, and Michael is an incredible teacher, and yourself now mentoring young people to learn the instrument. How should you approach criticism?
It's a very difficult topic because no one wants to be criticized, and you need to tell the student what can be better. And with something like music, there is not an ending. So if I perform a repertoire, a piece, as let's say a Beethoven sonata, I could bring it on a very high level, but still the day after, I will try to make all certain parts better. So it's very important to understand that art has not ending, it's not math, and you just have to flow with it and learn to accept it, and don't take it personal, because of course sometimes we think, oh, I'm just not good enough, so I should quit with the instrument. And it's not about that. It's not easy for no one. So everyone has to work a lot with the instrument. Everyone has to practice many hours. It's just not easy, and that's why not everyone is a pianist or a musician or an artist. But you just have to keep going. You just have to keep going and have and trust this process, because, as I said, it's absolutely worth it.
There is a lightness to your attitude, Walkiria. Your laughter comes quickly, and you're at ease with self. One can sense that just listening to your voice. Is that something by nature that you've always possessed, or something you've worked on in part as a performer?
I think my parents are both very spiritual persons, but I do work a lot on that. I work a lot on having a well-balanced mental control, and I also work a lot and invest a lot of time on being an emotional healthy person, because, as I said, you have to be confronted by criticism, deadlines, giving you a number. For example, as we talk about the competitions, you are today not the number 1, you are today the number 12. So what does that mean, right? But maybe 2 years ago you were number 1. So I've been in both positions. I've been number 1, I've been number 2, I've been also on at the very ending. So it has a lot to do with the preparation and how was the day of the performance. But for this, you do need a lot of emotional control. So I meditate, I try to eat very healthy, and I try to stay very calm and very balanced, because it's important. Otherwise, you will get very easily affected by critics and by others, because there are so many people playing exactly the same and doing it very good. So it's very difficult to not fall on this comparison and to just follow your process and trust your process. And for example, I know there are so many great pianists performing on a wonderful level the piano concerto, but I will have my own interpretation of the piano concerto, and my interpretation is not more beautiful than the others, or their interpretation is not more beautiful than mine. It's just different. because there is only one Valkyrie in the world. So it's just my interpretation. So once that you understand that this is a very personal process and that no one is competing with no one, even when you go to the competition, you don't get affected by not winning the first prize, because you know that you are a true artist as well, and that you are not defined by the number.
I would agree there is only one Walkiria.
Thank you.
I would wonder what the Walkiria I'm speaking to plans to do with her future. What are your plans?
Yes, I'm very excited at the moment. I'm right now working on my repertoire in my Vienna studio, getting ready for some solo recitals in the next month in Vienna, planning to go to Venezuela, also planning to go to New York to participate at the final of the Gershwin competition and also to have my solo recital there. I will be also participating in some festivals and master classes, and other projects like concerts with orchestra will be confirmed soon. So it's a very exciting year, and I'm working very hard on that.
We're within 2 minutes, and this is always the frustrating part of an excellent interview, as this is, in that we run out of time. Do you have any final thoughts for anyone out there who has a love affair, a pretension, a feeling, a desire, either parent or student, to follow your footsteps? Do you have any final thoughts for them?
Yeah, I will just try to encourage everyone to just follow their heart, and whatever you do, whatever you decide to do, just do it with love. If you do it with love, it can only work. There is no second chance. It can only work if you do it with love. So just try to do everything with love.
Will those who attempt to do it with love have the opportunity to see you in the finals? Can you share any details about that for them?
Excuse me?
Can you share any details about the finals so that people in the listening audience who are in the New York metropolitan area can visit, buy a ticket, listen?
Yes, well, I think the appointment will be around October. I'm not completely sure about it. I think the dates are not updated yet because it's still in some month. But it will be probably at the Public Library of Brooklyn. So anyways, as soon as my appointments, my solo recitals in New York will be confirmed, I will be posting all the information on my social media. This is either Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and my name is Walkiria Izaguirre.
I can assure you that I'm rather looking forward to being in the audience when you play, either at the library, at Carnegie, whatever the circumstance might be. Any final designation in regard to your website that you want to share so that people can listen? And we have about 50 seconds.
Yes, well, I will just love to have you listen in my music. It's music made it with love, and you will find at the moment some solo recordings on internet, but you will be hearing soon some chamber music and more solo music coming. So I hope you enjoy it.
I'm sure we will. This has been quite the pleasure. Thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. Look forward to listening to you play. I'm sure anyone with a respect for your style of music knows quality when they hear it. It is a circumstance that we'll take part in, that we'll remember, that we'll record, and hopefully we can do this again, Walkiria, on a future date.
My pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you in New York in a few months.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Sí, gracias, hermana. We'll be back next week. We'll pursue some of the same criteria and investigate some music. This is Seldom Said. My name is Robert.